Welcome to Master the Game. I am Juice, and this is day 9 of RPG A Day 2021. Today's word is role. So we're going to talk about your character's role within their party and what I do at my table. So let's get started. If this is your first time here, smash that subscribe button and give us a like. We're going to be talking about all sorts of RPG topics for the month of August every single day. We're going to talk about how I do things in my games. We're going to talk about live plays. We're going to talk about RPG stories. We're going to talk about a litany of things. So if you are interested in this, be sure to smash that subscribe button. All right, so this is about the third time I've tried to do this video. Didn't realize I had no audio on before because, I'm awesome today and I'm having one of those days. So with that, we're going to talk about the role of your character in your games. Now, a lot of groups think it's very important to cover the 4 basic roles at the table. And the 4 basic roles are this: a tank, some kind of utility like lock picking, usually a rogue of some sort, a magic user, and a healer. And I put it in that exact order because usually the healer is the last thing anybody wants to play. Newer systems like 5e, for example, have removed some of the burden to have a healer in your party, which I think is wonderful because, again, I've played AD&D a lot. I've played other games where it just feels like the burden on the players is that somebody needs to be a healer, and it just tends to be the last person who hasn't chosen what they want to play yet. One of the big things for me that I always tell my players is do not worry about covering all of the roles. Now, we'll get back to, the player side in a little bit, but from a DM standpoint, I will tend to take into account what roles the players cover. If I know there is no tank, I might let them, hire out some mercenaries to be their tank. If they don't have a rogue, I might let them hire an NPC to play that role. If they don't have a healer, I might let them get healing potions for really cheap in town. Might even house rule that, they can do a bonus action to drink a healing potion. Or also, again, might let them just have an NPC that's hyper-focused in healing. The thing about this is this isn't my excuse to make a GM PC. I am totally opposed to having a GM PC at the table. But if the party wants to hire out help, I'm going to let them. And when I do this, though, it's not going to be a strong character. Like, say their first level, this character is going to be probably a lesser character. It's probably just going to be a commoner who wears like a little bit of armor and can do some healing, for example. Like maybe it has cure wounds like 2 times a day or something. If they're hiring a rogue, it's probably not going to be very effective in combat. It's probably only going to be really good at lock picking and checking for traps. If we're talking about a magic user, yeah, they're going to have arcane knowledge. They're going to be able to read things and possibly deliver information that the other players are not going to know, have access to. And they might be able to do things like detect magic or something. Again, very hyper-focused, but not able to do the same stuff that a first level caster will do. Same thing for the tanks. The tanks might give them 2 or 3 lesser ones, or maybe even just give them one that, again, can take some hits, might have a higher constitution, a higher armor class, but is not very good at hitting, is not very good at dealing damage, and basically is just a meathead who's probably not that smart. That's probably how I would build it. Now, the next aspect of this is I would not control them in combat. As the DM, I would probably make the stat block on a note card or a piece of paper or in a Google Doc and give the players access to this and say, which one of you wants to control this one in combat? And let them control it. So I'm not the one stealing any spotlight at the table. They're still controlling it. They're still controlling the tactics, all of that. The only stuff I would control is some of the role play outside of combat. Would definitely not try to steer the party in any one direction when it comes to trying to figure out what they're going to do next, but would answer their questions if they ask the NPC a question. The NPCs would probably be a little bit more reserved, knowing that they're a lesser portion of the party. Now with that, there are some expectations I would have for these NPCs. They either need to be paid or given some treasure. They also would probably get some XP, if you're doing XP, they'd probably split it evenly, or maybe to a lesser degree. Or, in my case, I do milestone leveling. So I would probably let the party, as they level up 2 or 3 times, that NPC would probably level up only once. And again, I would probably keep them much less powerful, throughout the duration of the game. Now, there's some really cool things about this. So if you're a DM, you can use this to add to the story in so many ways. A lot of things can happen with that NPC. They can die. They can turn on the party. They can choose to leave for whatever reason. Things like that. So a lot of story stuff can come from that. Like if they die, now the party has to figure out, well, we just lost our healer. What are we going to do? Maybe the NPC gets kidnapped. Now the players want to get their NPC back because they've been working with them for so long. They don't want to hire a first level NPC, to do the same role again because it's going to be less powerful. So again, that's some of the stuff I think you could do with it. And I think that would make for a really fun campaign where an NPC is traveling along. If you are doing something like this though, in session 0, you need to have these conversations. Tell your party it's not important that they cover all the roles. That way you don't have 1 or 2 people playing a character they really don't want to play. Let them know there are ways in-game to cover these roles, whether it's through magic items or hiring out NPCs. But tell them this is probably how this is going to work throughout the campaign, and that way they at least know what to expect and can decide if that's what they really want to do. Now, the reason I do it the way I do at my table is because I don't want a player to feel like when their character dies, say they're the healer and they die, I don't want them to feel like they have to make another character who can do the healing. Same thing if you had a rogue in the party and they die. Now they feel like they have to make another rogue. I don't want that. I want them to play what they want to play. And especially if they were tired of that character, I want them to be able to flow into a new one. To me, anyways, it's more about the story that they tell throughout the campaign than it is the actual covering all the roles so they can be good in combat or good in a dungeon. As a player, I understand, especially coming from AD&D, how imperative it feels like when you need these roles. A lot of DMs out there are willing to work with the party. If you just ask your DM in session 0, hey, what if we don't have a healer? Are we just screwed? Like, how are you going to handle that? Ask your DM these questions. Maybe, again, nobody really wants to play a tank. So maybe the DM will give you a meat shield to stand in front of you. Maybe that meat shield will just be focused on defense and will never attack. For instance, in 5e, just taking a defensive action all the time. Unless something tries to run by him, then he'll use his reaction to attack. Things like that might work out really well. And again, you might be taking a burden off your DM as well, because they might go, oh, okay, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, let's do that. Even if you just pose some of these ideas to them, or you could just share this video and see what your DM thinks. Not all DMs are going to go along with it. Some DMs don't want to deal with that. Some people like to run modules as written. A lot of modules assume you're going to have the basic roles covered. So, things like that might impact the DM's decision. So anyways, that's my thoughts on this. If you want to hear more, ask your questions below. I might do a follow-up video sometime. I really think this is an important topic to discuss. And again, I sort of wish more DMs embrace this idea and ways to handle that, because to me, it makes, again, for a far more interesting game. And again, it makes for happier players. So with that, this was Master the Game. I am Juice. Game on.